Well, tomorrow, of course, another big data day for China. We've got Q3 GDP numbers out. According to a Dow Jones poll, the economy is expected to grow 9.2% in the 3 months to September. That would be slower than the 9.5% seen in Q2. Let's talk about this. Manu Bhaskaran is partner and board member at Centennial Group, joining me live from our studios at the Singapore Exchange. Staying with us, our guest host, Russell Jones from Westpac Institutional. Manu, let me kick things off with you. Obviously, we do have this raft of data due out from China tomorrow at around about 10 a.m. Singapore, Hong Kong time. That data is set to come out. What are you looking for in terms of GDP? I mean, are you looking for a slowdown?
Yes, I think the trajectory is basically going to be a gradual slowdown for the rest of this year and probably a much greater than expected slowdown next year.
All right, give me a little bit more detail. If you're looking for I mean, is this a macro story? Is this a more domestic story?
Well, basically, if you look at the key drivers of China's economy, they're all flashing negative. The first is external demand. Clearly, that's coming down. The OECD lead indicators for virtually every economy in the world is pointing to a slowdown. Secondly, you have the accumulating effect of the imbalances in China. You've had a lot of anecdotal evidence of small, medium-sized enterprises in difficulty, but that really reflects an underlying issue which is really becoming quite dangerous for China, and that is the increasing travails of the informal lending, illicit lending, call it what you like, market. And underlying that is really that a lot of the speculative excesses in the system are now being washed out, and I think that's going to create far more headwinds for the economy than the consensus believes. And on top of that, of course, the third factor is the lagged impact of all the monetary tightening in China that you've seen since January last year. So that's a formidable array of headwinds facing China.
Russell?
I think Manu's hit most of the nails on the head there, actually. I think the economy is definitely losing a bit of steam. I was very struck by the weakness of the trade numbers last week, and in particular exports to Europe dropping very sharply. My sense is that the tide in Chinese policy is starting to turn, and it wouldn't at all surprise me if within a couple of months they're actually loosening, either in terms of reserve requirements or interest rates. But I think we're going to see a change of track, a change of course, and I think that will also be reflected right across Asia, quite frankly.
Oh, what do you think, Manu? I mean, this is a very interesting point, not just in China, but right across Asia. Is a couple of months the right sort of timetable for the tide to turn here when it comes to interest rate policy?
Well, we're already seeing Indonesia and Singapore to a certain extent easing policy. Personally, I think, given my views on global growth next year and the impact on Asia, I think central banks, except for India and Vietnam, where you have an inflation problem, central banks generally should be going for aggressive easing. I mean, monetary policy operates with a long lag. You don't wait for the data to turn down before easing. You anticipate it. And I believe that the risks are really growing to growth, and the central bank's policy priorities really should shift to tackling the growth risks, not inflation.
What's the trade on that then?
Well, buy Asian government debt, frankly, because you're going to see some fairly big rallies if central banks are actually going to reduce interest rates over the course of the next 12 months or so, which I tend to agree. I think Manu's got it right in terms of the policy direction. You know, despite the fact that these economies have got their own internal dynamic, they're still very, very dependent upon the international environment and the big boys. And the big boys are definitely slowing at the moment, definitely.
Yeah, it's a very good point, and one we tend not to focus on enough, I think. Thank you, Russell. And Manu, thank you so much. We'll be chatting with Russell just a little bit more across the course of the next hour. Manu, it was great to chat today.